The copper coin felt like a searing brand against my palm. The laughter in the room, a soft, tinkling, venomous sound, didn't ripple. It settled, a thick fog of condescension. My grandmother's memorial reception was a masterpiece of sterling family theater. Tasteful lilies, muted cello suites, and faces polished to a sheen of respectable grief. And then, my cousin Dixon had taken center stage. "A moment, everyone," he'd called, his voice a smooth baritone that commanded the room of architects, lawyers, and old money benefactors. He held up a small, worn mahogany box. Nana was meticulous in her wishes. She left specific tokens for us all. "This," he said, his eyes finding me where I lingered near the grand piano, trying to become part of the wallpaper, "was for Cuthbert." All eyes turned. I felt my skin prickle, a familiar heat of exposure. I was the adopted afterthought in the Sterling dynasty, a restorer of broken things in a family that built glittering, award-winning new ones. Dixon, the biological heir, was the star architect, his name on glass towers that scarred skylines. I walked forward, the Persian rug swallowing the sound of my sensible shoes. He placed the box in my hand with the solemnity of a state ceremony. "She said it finally matched your worth," Dixon announced just loudly enough. A calculated murmur, not quite laughter, passed through the crowd. My aunt, Camilla, Dixon's mother, looked away, adjusting a perfect pearl earring. I opened the clasp. Inside, on fraying midnight velvet, lay a single, badly tarnished copper coin. It was crude, barely recognizable, perhaps a 19th century trade penny. The ultimate insult, not even a valuable antique, just trash. I closed the box. The metallic scent of old corrosion and humiliation filled my nose. "Thank you, Dixon," I said, my voice thankfully steady. How thoughtful of her. I pocketed it. The coin felt heavy, an anchor dragging me down. For the rest of the afternoon, I floated through conversations, a ghost in my own life. I saw the glances, the pitiful smiles. Poor Cuthbert. Even in death, Rose put her in her place. I believed that. For 3 weeks. Then, the letter arrived. Thick, cream linen paper embossed with the name Fernandez and Locke, Solicitors, Chancery Lane, London. My name was written in a spidery, old-fashioned hand. The Sterling family lawyers were a modern firm in a glass building. I'd never heard of this one. Inside, the language was arcane, formal. "Pursuant to the specific and conditional directives of the late Mrs. Rose Victoria Sterling, we request your presence for the execution of a singular bequest. The conditions having been met, you are required to attend." A date, time, and address were given. The condition, it noted, was the presentation of the token. A cold finger traced my spine. I took the letter to the only family member who might not instantly dismiss it, my Uncle Felix, my father's younger black sheep brother, a historian who lived in a book-choked flat in Bloomsbury. He'd been disinherited years ago for an unnamed scandal. He read it, his glasses perched on his nose. His expression shifted from curiosity to profound shock. "Fernandez and Locke," he whispered. "Good God, I thought they'd closed a century ago." "What do you mean?" "They were the Sterling family solicitors from the Regency era until your grandfather modernized everything in the 80s. Rose must have kept them on privately. This is a fideikommissum." "A what?" "A dead man's hand, an instruction from beyond the grave that triggers on an event." He looked at me, his eyes sharp. "What token, Cuthbert?" Trembling, I showed him the copper coin. He took it to his desk, produced a magnifying glass, and examined it under a strong lamp. He didn't see an insult. He saw a puzzle. "It's a condor token," he said finally. used in the 1840s by the Sterling family mining interests in Cornwall to pay workers. Worthless outside the mines, but also a key. A key to what? To a box, a door, a secret? Rose wasn't dismissing you, child. She was arming you. And she knew the wolves would see it as a bone thrown to the dog. He told me to go to the meeting, to say nothing, to observe everything. This, he said, was Rose's opening gambit, and she was the best chess player I ever knew. The gravity of his words sat with me, but the true test came the next day. I made the mistake of mentioning the letter to Aunt Camilla over a tense, silent phone call. The reaction was seismic. "You will do no such thing," she hissed, her usual glacial composure shattered. "That is a private family matter. Those lawyers are confused. You will forward that letter to me immediately, and I will handle it." In the background, I heard Dixon's voice, sharp and questioning. Then the line went dead. An hour later, Dixon himself showed up at my warehouse studio, where I was painstakingly cleaning a Georgian-era mantelpiece. He smelled of expensive cologne and arrogance.
"Cuthbert," he said, not bothering with hello, "Mother's upset. This legal nonsense is stirring up mud when we should be mourning. Give me the letter and the coin. Nana was frail at the end. She didn't know what she was doing." I wiped my hands on a rag, leaving smudges of historical grime on my jeans. "She seemed sharp enough when she told you to give me the token that matched my worth in front of 200 people, Dixon." A muscle twitched in his jaw. His smile was all teeth. "Sentimentality. Look, I'll make it easy. A trade. The coin and the letter for a direct commission. The foyer of my new Stratford Tower needs a historic focal point, a restored piece. Your name on the plaque. Proper money." He was trying to buy the key, and in doing so, he confirmed its value. "No, thank you," I said softly. "I think I'll see what Nana wanted." His facade cracked. For a fleeting second, I saw not just anger, but a deep, chilling fear. "You're digging in a grave, Cuthbert. You might not like what digs back out." He left, the slam of his car door echoing in the quiet street. The meeting was held not in a sleek office, but in the paneled backroom library of Fernandez and Locke. It smelled of beeswax, leather, and slow decay. Mr. Alistair Fernandez was a man who seemed carved from the same oak as his desk. His voice was a dry rustle of parchment. Aunt Camilla and Dixon were already there, seated in high-backed chairs as if on thrones. Camilla's face was a tight mask of porcelain. Dixon's was a study in controlled fury. They had brought the family's sharp-tongued solicitor, Ms. Reed. I sat alone, clutching my bag with the coin inside. "We are here," Mr. Fernandez began, without preamble, "to execute the directive of Rose Victoria Sterling, dated and reconfirmed 6 months prior to her passing. The conditional trigger was the presentation of the specified condor token to the beneficiary, Cuthbert Sterling, in a public forum. This has been confirmed to have occurred." "This is an absurdity," Camilla interjected, her voice trembling. "My mother was not in her right mind. We have medical opinions." "Your opinions are noted, but irrelevant to the condition. The condition was her public presentation of the token. Her state of mind when she set the condition, years prior, is legally sound. The event has transpired. We proceed." He opened a dossier. "Mrs. Sterling's directive concerns the Sterling Heritage Trust." I saw Dixon stiffen. The trust was the family's prestigious charity, funding architectural preservation awards and lectures. Dixon was its chairman, a position that gave him immense social cachet. Mrs. Sterling, a silent benefactor, arranged for a full forensic audit of the trust's finances over the past 5 years, Fernandez continued. He slid a summary report across the desk. The findings are conclusive and evidence criminal malfeasance. The room froze. Falsified invoices for non-existent restoration work. A shell company, Cornish Legacy Limited, to which over £850,000 was diverted. Funds used for personal expenditure, luxury cars, property deposits in the Bahamas, club memberships. Fernandez's eyes settled on Dixon. The audit trail is meticulous. The chairman's signatures are on every fraudulent document. Dixon shot to his feet, his chair screeching. This is a lie, a forgery. She's behind this. He pointed a shaking finger at me. She's always been jealous. She manipulated a dying old woman. I said nothing. My heart was a drum against my ribs. This was Nana's move. Not a gift, but a grenade. Sit down, Mr. Sterling, Fernandez said. The audit was initiated by your grandmother, conducted by an independent firm she appointed. The evidence has already been shared with the Charity Commission, and as of this morning, the Metropolitan Police's Serious Fraud Office. Camilla made a small, choked sound. The color drained from Dixon's face, leaving him gray. This was beyond family drama. This was ruin. The directive, Fernandez pressed on, states that upon confirmation of such malfeasance, the entirety of Mrs. Sterling's personal estate, including her direct 70% controlling stake in the Sterling Heritage Trust, her cottage in the Berkshire Downs, Havenwood, her private art collection, and her liquid assets shall bypass the primary line of inheritance and be bequeathed in full to her granddaughter, Cuthbert Sterling. The silence was absolute. I couldn't breathe. She is adopted, Dixon roared, spittle flying. She has no right. She was legally adopted by your uncle, Charles Sterling, making her Mrs. Sterling's legal granddaughter in every sense. Furthermore, Mrs. Sterling's letter of wishes is explicit. He took out a single sheet of her personal stationery and read aloud, his voice softening just a fraction on the familiar words. To my granddaughter, Cuthbert, who sees the truth in the cracked veneer and the beauty in the broken beam. They gave you a token of copper to signify your worth. I give you the keys to the kingdom to prove theirs. The trust is corrupt. Clean it. Rebuild it in the true spirit of preservation. Havenwood is yours. It always was. It is a home for a soul, not a trophy for a facade. You were never the outsider, my dear. You were the only one looking at the foundations, while they were busy admiring the spire. Tears blurred my vision. Every slight, every cold Christmas, every time I'd chosen the authenticity of old stone over their cold glass, she had seen it. She had valued it. This isn't over, Dixon seethed, his voice low and venomous. I will contest this. I will drag her and you and my grandmother's senile ghost through every court in this country. Miss Reed, the family solicitor, finally spoke, her voice tight. Dixon, there's a non-contest clause. If you challenge the will and lose, you become liable for all legal costs and forfeit any remaining discretionary bequest from the general estate. The £250,000 left to you. I don't care, he screamed, the sound raw and ugly in the quiet room. You should, said a new, calm voice from the doorway. We all turned. A woman in a sharply tailored suit stood there, flanked by a serious-looking man in a less expensive one. She held up a badge. D.I. Sarah Kahn, Serious Fraud Office. Dixon Sterling, I need you to come with us to assist with our inquiries regarding the fraudulent misappropriation of funds from the Sterling Heritage Trust. The world tilted. Camilla fainted, slumping forward onto the polished desk. Dixon was read his rights, his hands trembling as he was let out, casting one last, utterly devastating look of pure hatred at me. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about annihilation. In the stunned quiet that followed, Mr. Fernandez handed me a large, heavy key and a deed. Havenwood. You should go there. The cottage was not what I expected. Nestled in a hidden valley, it wasn't a quaint thatched roof, but a sturdy, ancient stone house built around what looked like a medieval hunting lodge's core. It felt alive, settled into the land. Using the heavy key, I stepped inside. It was not a museum of sterling grandeur. It was her. Books piled by chairs, well-worn Persian rugs, the smell of lavender and wood smoke ingrained in the stone, and art, not the cold, formal portraits from the London house, but vibrant, modern pieces, landscapes, abstracts, a sanctuary. Uncle Felix helped me move in. As we sorted through her study, we found more than just books. We found her journals, and in them, the second, deeper twist.
The entries spoke of a deep, decades-long sadness, not about me, but about my adoption itself. Charles brought her home today, one early entry read. A light in his eyes I haven't seen since the accident. We must protect her. We must never let the truth come out, for her sake and for his. The accident referred to the car crash that killed my father, Charles, and his first wife, Rebecca, 5 years before he adopted me. It was family lore, a tragedy never discussed. I'd always assumed I was a comfort, a way for him to heal. The journals grew more cryptic. Camilla suspects. She looks at the child with such venom. She knows the money should have been hers, but the trust is clear. The firstborn son of the firstborn son. Charles is broken, but he is still the heir. And this child, she secures it. Then, in a journal from the year I turned 10, a bombshell. The investigator found her, the birth mother, in Leeds. She confirmed it. The payment was made, the records sealed. But she told him something else, something terrible. The father wasn't some anonymous boy. It was Dixon's father. My own son, Gregory. My blood ran cold. Gregory Sterling, Camilla's husband, Dixon's father, a charming, feckless man who died of a heart attack when I was a teenager. According to this, he had fathered a child as a young man, me. The adoption wasn't just charitable. It was a cover-up. Charles hadn't adopted a random orphan. He adopted his brother's illegitimate child to keep the inheritance line intact and the scandal buried. I wasn't just adopted. I was a Sterling by blood, Dixon's half-sister. And my existence had been a direct threat to Camilla and Dixon's status from the very beginning. This was the secret that had fueled their hatred. This was the mud Dixon warned me not to stir. Nana hadn't just left me the estate out of love for me. She was also trying to right a catastrophic wrong, to give me what was biologically mine, which they had conspired to steal through years of emotional warfare. The final twist came in a sealed envelope, tucked behind her desk drawer, addressed to me in her firm hand. My dearest Cuthbert, if you are reading this, you have found the journals. You now know the terrible, fragile truth of your origin. I have carried this guilt for so long. We chose secrecy to protect you from the ugliness, but in doing so, we left you defenseless against it. Gregory was weak. His wife Camilla is vicious. We believed giving you to Charles, the best of my sons, was the greatest gift. We were wrong. The greatest gift was your own spirit, which we failed to nurture. The coin was the test. If you had thrown it away in anger, you were not yet ready for the truth. If you sought its meaning, you were.
The cottage, the art, the trust. They are not your inheritance. They are your reparations. Use them to build a life of truth, which I failed to give you. With all my love and regret. Nana.
I sat on the floor of her study, the weight of generations of lies and manipulations pressing down on me. The victory was ashes. I had won a fortune, but I had lost the simple story of my life. I wasn't an overlooked outsider. I was the central, hidden figure in a decades-old conspiracy of succession. The fallout was swift and brutal. Dixon, facing criminal charges, tried to use the paternity secret as a weapon, contesting the will on grounds of undue influence and claiming I'd known my true identity all along. But Nana, in her infinite foresight, had included a DNA test result in her dossier with Fernandez and Locke, one she had privately conducted, along with the signed affidavit from my birth mother. The truth was already part of the legal record, neutering Dixon's blackmail. He lost, utterly. The no contest clause stripped him of his remaining inheritance. The criminal case proceeded. Camilla, implicated in the cover-up, if not the fraud, retreated from society, a ghost in her own empty mansion. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt weary. I used the controlling stake to dismantle the corrupt trust board and rebuild it with transparency, focusing on community-led preservation. I opened Havenwood as a retreat for artisans and conservators. One afternoon, a year later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was another Condor token, freshly polished to a warm, gleaming bronze. With it was a note on simple cardstock. The first coin was the key to the past. This one is for the future. Mint a new legacy. F. Uncle Felix. He understood. The copper wasn't a symbol of worthless metal. It was the base material, the ore from which something strong could be forged. The sterling name had always been about imposing structures, towering egos, cold facades. My inheritance was different. It was about restoration, not just of buildings, but of a truth. Not just of art, but of a soul. The gilded cage was gone. In its place, I held a simple, solid key. And for the first time, the door it opened was my own.